Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session. It's great to have you here. I think all of us are joining in from different parts of India and possibly the world. Super excited to have you and really, really excited for our conversation today. Um, the session today is organized by MNC Saatchi Performance, and I'm give you a short brief about what our session is going to be about and take you through some housekeeping rules. Our webinar today is called Brand versus Performance, Finding Demand, a conversation about why finding new demand has become harder and what brands can truly do about it. We'll delve into how demand creation and demand capture work together, where brand investment starts to impact performance outcomes, how smarter signaling can help teams identify the right audiences earlier and scale growth more sustainably. We're super excited to have you here with us. So let's just get started. A few housekeeping rules. This is an informal education session that we're aiming to provide some expert insight into. So we really, really encourage any and all engagement. Please feel free to drop in your questions for our speakers. We'll be running polls throughout the session, so do tune in and respond with your challenges, with your opinions, and we look forward to hearing from you. All of our sessions are recorded, so you will get access to this after, and they'll also be available on our website. And in case you have any other questions or want to chat with us about our services, do reach out to our marketing team at marketing@mncsaatchiperformance.com. So let's dive right in. I think I look forward to kind of introducing our panelists for today. We have three very dynamic speakers, and I'm going to briefly take you through who MNC Saatchi Performance is and what we do. MNC Saatchi Performance is a leading global performance marketing agency. We started way back in 2006, initially focusing on mobile, and we've since expanded, and I would like to say metamorphosized into an agency that helps brands really thrive in the digital landscape. We have a heritage in growing brands and can tailor our services depending on what each of our clients need. As we begin, I would love to ask our two amazing industry stalwarts, Partha and Gulrez, to briefly introduce themselves and also tell us a little bit about where they spend their time when they're not solving all of the grand marketing problems that we are all grappling with. So maybe we can start with you, Partha.
Hey, thank you so much, and a big thank you to Apple for being a part of it. Gulrez, thank you for associating with us, and everyone who joined. We hope you get something out of substance from this conversation. So, yes, coming to my role, I'm Partha Sharma. I lead the India business as the country director for MNC Saatchi Performance. Um, while not solving business problems or marketing problems, I've now taken up a little bit health more seriously. So I'm doing a little bit of MMA. That's something I've started recently. I've taken up to reading a little bit more. We were just talking about the collection of books that Dia has behind her. Um, I enjoy music. Bangalore unfortunately doesn't have the live music scene anymore, but whenever there's a techno session happening or there's a jazz music week that is going on, so those things I'm very fond of. And in terms of time spent, I mean, most of the time outside of work, in terms of just entertainment, would be YouTube shorts. I love YouTube shorts. So that's a little bit about me.
I think we can all attest to the fact that I think YouTube has some of our time spent, if not a huge chunk of it. I'm guilty to YouTube Shorts as well. I think every now and then when you want to turn your brain off a little bit, you start scrolling, hopefully not doom scrolling. But yes, absolutely. I think we're all have that little common element. What about you, Gulrez? Could you share a little bit about yourself and your role with Affle and where your attention is captured?
Sure, for sure. Thank you so much, Dev, for having me. And pleasure to be speaking side by side with Partha. So, as you know, my name is Gulrez. I've spent the last 23 years I was one of the first or early starters of digital advertising in India. So from building one of the largest performance marketing agency in India, moving to a global network, and now being part of the largest publicly traded consumer platform, that is Affle. Um, in my role, I lead the India and emerging markets from a revenue perspective. And Dia, to answer your question about what do I do when I'm not chasing revenue, I am probably chasing speed. So I'm a huge motor sports enthusiast. You can probably find me on track days. You can find me on desert rallies. And very often I end up spending weekends with my son on go-kart. But the funny part is every time I end up on a go-kart with my son, he always ends up beating me. And that's a different fun itself. So I enjoy that a lot. So yeah, motorsports enthusiast.
I think you made all the adrenaline junkies in our chat box very, very excited, because I think we all have that little bit of a kick when it comes to being on the road, off-roading. I recently did a quasi off-roading trip, and I have found a new level of engagement and joy when it comes to kind of seeing the car kind of go off the beaten path. It's really something else.
It's very addictive.
Yeah, it is. I think just as we dive right in, I want to maybe take our participants through a few guiding key points that we'll try to address through today's session. And I'm sure everybody's very excited. So do keep your engagement and drop your questions in and comments in. Just to kind of take you through a quick snapshot. Today's session, we'll be diving into what has changed in the digital media landscape. How creating demand versus capturing demand is so different and so distinct, and yet very, very important. Understanding where brand investment lowers CPAs and improves acquisition efficiency, and also understanding how modern data and mobile signals can help identify the right audiences earlier. And then maybe, depending on how the pace and our flow of our conversation, try to maybe understand a practical approach to finding and scaling demand. Yeah, I think let's get started. We have a poll for our audience. What is your biggest challenge with finding demand today? I also want to ask our speakers today how they feel, or what, in their opinion, may be the biggest challenge that they feel our audience may be coming up with. This may be forecasting a little bit, but I'm curious. Gulrez, do you have thoughts?
I would say that when we try to find new demand, we're all constantly focusing on performance advertising. We're not creating demand. We're trying to capture the demand which is already existing, and hopefully we're going to address this later as well. But one of the biggest challenges is our focus on the CPAs. That's a big problem for me.
What about you, Partha? Based on your client interactions and just kind of seeing the pulse of the market right now, what do you feel holds true for you when it comes to this question?
I mean, yeah. So while all of these kind of make sense at different levels or different types of clients, different the journey of the business that they are in, I think for what is coming up very strongly is as the platforms are becoming widened up, right? You have to reach people across multiple platforms. Measurement is becoming a key challenge, and your attribution is different platforms have different attributions, different measurements of attributions. While there are single source of truth, it doesn't really speak then to the CRM. So those keeping that in mind, I think today a bigger challenge would be measurement and true measurement of understanding a platform efficacy. I think is a biggest challenge for brands and agencies both.
Amazing. I think we have one more poll question for our audience before we really dive into the meatier chunk, which is, where do you feel your brand is currently over-indexing? I think it's a question that, as a strategist for me, I've been asked and tasked this question time and again, and it's a hard one. I think where, given the fact that there's so many attention touch points across the board for everybody to be across and to have a multi-channel approach, I'm curious in terms of your work and just your engagement with clients, where do you feel it's vital, maybe to kind of spend time and to make sure that brands are not overspending on a certain section? Partha, maybe you could dive in a little bit from a media perspective of what you're seeing your clients kind of over-indexing on, and maybe should be putting attention towards other factors or other sections and verticals.
Yeah, I think I'll go with what the audience is also kind of talking about. Digital also has got this rap of like, easy conversions, signals are there, audience is there, their behavior. So it's a conversion-led medium. I would say performance is still something that we deal with being over-indexed, right? And that kind of leads to the saturation of your performance kind of campaign. So I would rely on the majority of what the audience is also saying. It's on the lower funnel activations.
And I think just to kind of dive right into it, we have, I think, are grappling with a new marketing reality in which we have to accommodate for multiple different kinds of attention factors. And I think with the AI burst and the bubble being kind of, the topic and conversation is ever flowing about whether the AI bubble is going to burst or not. But I think it's nudged us in a direction where we have new challenges and new realities to face with. I think I want to ask you, based on your experience and just the time spent in this industry, what do you think has been the most drastic and fundamental changes for marketers and the biggest shifts in market that we still need to grasp or we may not have already kind of had a good hold on?
Yeah, Gulresh, do you want to start off with, and I can just follow up behind that?
I think we need to obviously grow the pool. In the new marketing reality, we are still focusing on the, let's say if I talk about India, the 5% of the total population, which is the tier 1 metros, we are still trying to squeeze the maximum out of it. Mm-hmm. I think that focus by brands to treat, digital advertising as kind of a absolute performance machine that you put in certain amount of money and you get an X return, always looking at ROS and not focusing on the brand building. I feel that needs to change a little bit. And we all, as the digital evangelists, we need to educate the clients a little more about building the trust. Right? In India, it is, I'll give you one data point, about 62% of tier 2 and tier 3 metros, people, one of the surveys conducted, they said we will not buy from a brand if we've not heard of the brand at least 4 to 5 times, right? Which basically means that the trust for that brand in even getting the brand demand is extremely important. So that'll be one key factor for me when we talk about the new marketing reality.
I mean, I completely agree on that. Definitely on that 5%, we are so optimistic on the paying audience, and on just to add to that, we have a lot of talk about how attention is scarce today, right? My belief is it's not just scarce; it's fleeting. It's also conditional, and people are expecting those earned moments to kind of create brand memory, which means that they're across so many things. It's not just that the frequency is going to keep building your brand recognition, right? There are cultural nuances, cultural resonance that is also kind of important while building that. I think that's going to be a big shift. Creative quality is definitely going to take center stage again, because, again, as I said, too much over-indexing on lower funnel, you're focused on creatives that talk about action, but less about what the brand should stand for and how should people resonate with that brand. So that is still a big shift that I'm seeing. AI, as you touched upon, while it is a buzzword, what we are seeing earlier on is that it is leading to a lot of strategic decision making, because now information is more readily and democratically available. Previously, which you had to rely on very expensive tools for, you still get a good quality of information from multiple sources. And this is something that I'd read, or one of the sessions that I heard from Ogilvy say that while it was previously one big campaign that was that used to get planned over a quarter or 6 months, today we see less of those one big campaigns and more smaller campaigns dedicated towards different audiences, each talking through a different lens, different medium. So I think that fragmentation of campaigns are also a big shift that we are seeing in the business as well. Yeah.
I think to hold your point about how attention is divided, and I think the fact that the consumer now is on multiple different platforms at the same time, and just to talk about, I think bringing AI as a section here, I was reading up about generative engine optimization, and I think we're talking about having our audiences split across so many different channels across the funnel. Measurement really has become the name of the game. Gulrez, from your perspective, with demand problems that brands are grappling with being so expansive today, what, in your perspective, is a smarter response that we should be equipped with?
I would call it break the last click loop. And since we were talking so much about over-indexing, Partha, how many times it has happened that, especially for D2C brands, once you see one of their ads on Instagram, the next, and you're scrolling, you continue to see the same brand ad again and again, no modification of the creative, that also is a big problem of over-indexing and AI. And why it happens? Because it is essentially telling the AI. AI is nothing but machine learning when it comes to the optimization, right? There are two various aspects of it. So what happens is, because Meta wants to prove, or the algorithms are trained in such a way that they want to prove to the advertiser that they can provide the last click attribution or the ROS, which basically means till the time brands are focusing or measuring, and in fact, Partha also shared it earlier, till the time they're focusing on last click attribution, this problem will continue. Now, if I give you the example of the developed world or some of the airline, in fact, Emirates is one of them, they are not following the last click attribution. They are following multi-touch attribution so that they're able to measure each channel effectively. And when I say channel effectively, I also want to tell the audience, because we are stuck in what I call it channel chasing instead of intent mapping. If you see the line item, a typical media plan would have a line item, search, meta, etc., and we all want to know the ROI for each of the line items. We are chasing those channels. We are not talking about holistic brand development or capturing the user when the intent is there. We're not talking about brand building in digital. I'll give you small examples again. We've all heard of, let's talk about Zomato and Blinkit, right? I mean, they did not start only focusing on performance, right? They're building the brand so that when a user is thinking about lunch or a dinner or eating a biryani or having a gulab jamun, then the discovery doesn't start on a search engine. The discovery starts on their platform. So they've established the need very, very categorically, and they've expanded the pool. So while the audience gets expanded, the discovery gets expanded. So from my perspective, to answer your question, that how do I respond? I would say break the last click loop. Instead of chasing the channel, chase the intent and expand discovery. These would be 3 or 4 really big, initiatives that we should do.
I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head, and I'm so excited because I think I have a couple of other questions which feed into your point about driving and finding that intent. But just to kind of stick with the thought about intent and demand, and understanding that demand, we've been talking about demand generation as one big job, but there's a real difference really between creating demand and capturing it. How would you really define the two? And do you think that the distinction matters in today's day and age? And I mean, feel free. In my opinion, the distinction is really, really, really important. But just from your experiences so far, I think just in the past quarter, what are some of the moments that you think it's really echoed strongly in your conscious mind?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's extremely important. Sorry, Partha, you want to take a dig at it? Go for it.
No, because you just ended with the last click attribution thing, and we want to touch
Go for
upon measurement, right? So I can just quickly summarize a little bit on this because it's been a running topic. Uh, Capture demand is like harvesting growth. Like you've got a certain pool. It's quick in action. It gives you that immediate revenue bump. Uh, but the downside of it is also that the funnel at the bottom of the funnel is smaller. There's a reason for it because there are lesser people with that intent of buying, and what you will see is at a long run it gets saturated. Your CACs keep increasing. That's because more and more competition is looking to kind of target that bottom part of the funnel where the user group is lesser, and I would say that is demand capturing. Demand generation is a more long-term play. As I said, it has to be deeply rooted in audience understanding. Um, Audience are more than just reach numbers on your spreadsheets. They are people, right? So that emotional connection, that understanding of that cultural resonance is also important. So what I would say is demand creation, it creates a future intent of buying audiences for a later period of time. So you have to feed in demand creation now to get the reap the benefits of it later. So I would say that has been a standout difference for me how I look at capturing demand and creating demand.
What about for you, Gulrez? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Oh, I'm absolutely aligned. I'll give you a simple example because this is IPL season. So let's say if you are watching a match and somebody is feeling thirsty, they need water, and you are selling water, you're capturing the demand that is already there, right? But
Yeah.
if you create a brand where they're looking, when they're thirsty, they're looking for your specific electrolyte, then that is the demand creation. And specifically mentioned by Partha, this is a long-term process. You need to invest in creation of the demand, and that is where the brands would maximize the returns as well. Another surprising data point is at any given point of time, at any given day, if a brand, when you look at target audience, right? Any given day, not more than 4 to 5% of your TGs in the market. So if you're only addressing them, which is the
Mhm.
demand capturing, you are leaving the 95% of your TG out. Correct? So completely aligned. We need to follow the rule of creation of demand rather than just capturing it.
No, absolutely. And I think just to stick to Partha's point about how you have to delve into it, you have to grow it sustainably over a longitudinal period of time. I think it feeds into my next question actually for him about if creating demand and capturing demand are doing two different jobs and have a future forward perspective, what are some of the things that you think marketers should really think about in terms of growth? And what are the kind of goals you think they should be setting for themselves and benchmarks they should be setting for themselves when it comes to this?
I'll try and take a stab at it first. So in terms of and the question largely remains on how do you kind of create demand and what are those markers, right? Um, Generally, demand creation starts when your performance stagnates, and I don't think that's always a right way to look at it. Those are more direct correlations. You will see your CVRs taking a hit. You will see your current first party audiences depleting. You will see your frequency of your existing performance campaigns tend to increase because that pool is not really increasing. So what is the flip side of it? Is exactly you would know that you're creating demand better, where your frequencies of your performance campaigns uh, are not running into 11s and double digits, right? You are being able to create a lot more first party audiences with different behaviors, and then that's where your CDP audiences come in, where you bucket them under different behavioral categories. And I would say that the easiest marker is to do some surveys of people. Do they know you? Do they buy from you? What is your concentration level? A lot of platforms do it, but at the core of it, I would still suggest that your brand search terms uplift is a clear indication of if your demand is increasing or not. I think a search lift study should be the first starting point to understand if you're able to consistently create demand over time.
What
And
about for
Partha,
you,
you'd be
Gurdeep?
surprised. Sorry, I just wanted to add one point to what Partha said. You'd be surprised, Partha, that how many brands are not even looking at the growth of the brand search terms. They say, this is what we do. This is what our effect of SEO. This is what, but they're not looking at the multi-channel attribution. So I'm completely aligned. Yeah, it's an extremely important factor to look at how your brand searches are growing because people are remembering it. And going forward, when you don't have any ways of targeting individual, let's say, assume that the privacy angle starts playing in India as well, and there's no way you can retarget the users, it's going to be more and more challenging to find the right audience pool, right? Because you don't have the signals anymore. What do you do then?
That's very interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's been a focus and a point of discussion for all of us. I think in India, we still take it a lot more easier because the privacy laws haven't really kicked in. And we're still dependent on retargeting audience and pool-based audiences and either from an MMP, CDP-based audiences marketing. But yeah, that's a very valid point as well, Gulrez. Thanks for bringing that up.
And I'm really glad that both of you brought up brand, and I think the focus on brand and also brand awareness, because it brings me to my next question. We've been talking about brand and performance somewhat as if they sit at completely different parts of the funnel, when truly they do coexist. And we've been hearing about anecdotally the classic 60-40 balance between brand and performance as a benchmark for maximizing long-term marketing effectiveness and just the future forward growth that we want our brand to have. From your perspective, where does brand start to show up in performance outcomes in a real and measurable way? I'll open it to both of you because I would love to hear both your points of view on this, because I know that it's a contentious balance that we all have opinions on.
Yeah, I mean, that 60-40 rule, it's a good starting point. I wouldn't say it's not. In the lack of data, you have to start off with something. But do you want to stick to that 60-40, 70-30, 80-20? It again depends on what funnel. There are multitudes of factors to it. There might be business goals, you're chasing immediate revenue, you're trying to build a long-term brand resonance. There are multiple facets to it, but I think 60-40 is a good point to start off with. How do you evaluate if this is the right mix? Is by a mix of trial and error, and there is no substitute for trial and error. For example, we've done campaigns where we've started with, let's say, a 40-45% allocation on brand. Then we were able to bring it down to 25% because we were realizing that the impact of showing the ad 4 times, the incremental sale uplift, and if I was showing the ad 3 times, the sale dip as a percentage to the dip in the number of frequency wasn't significant at all. So why should I show the ad 4 times instead of 3? So we've been able to bring that down. On some cases, we've also realized that no, the frequency needs to be a lot more because it's a new brand. You're trying to sell a product which is a little bit more complicated for people to understand. You still not have created that mind space in the minds of the user. In that case, we've also amped up our brand spend. So I would say it's a good metric to really start off with a 60-40 kind of a thing because it's a proven starting point. But considering different channels, different ways, testing, A/B test, and really testing, having a testing framework really helps you understand what is that mix you should be at. And it also changes basis seasonality, basis the life cycle of the consumer as well. So yeah, I think testing is the framework that we should all follow in understanding what really works for that brand, because not every brand and consumers are the same.
Does that hold true for you as well, Gurdeep? Do you feel that the 60-40 analogy really holds value in the current ecosystem? And do you feel that testing and the trial and error method when it comes to finding the right balance is something that, at least from your perspective and your experience, you've seen play out?
You know, there's a saying in Hindi, I'm going to repeat that, thoda tik tik laga lo Partha. If not 60-40, let's do 70-30, please. But aligned with Partha that it is all about trial and error, and must give it a fact that it is dependent on the brand, it is dependent on the season, it is dependent on how the other channels are performing. One thing is for sure that we need to look at your audience and figure out what is the right percentage of brand that needs to go in. I'm completely aligned on that. Yeah.
And I think what you said about it depends on the kind of brand. I think I want to ask you, as say I'm a new brand entering the market today, where should I focus when it comes to finding the right kind of demand? And I'll say the right kind of demand because you do really want to nuance your approach when you're entering a playing field. So how do you think they should focus on the dilemma between brand versus performance in those early nascent stages?
We're going to run out of time if I answer this question. Trust me, because this is the classical question. This is this catch-22 situation, especially for a new brand. As we understand, a new brand is heavy on performance. They want to make sure that they're showing the return to the investors. They want to make sure that whatever money they are spending, they're getting the ROI out of it. So they would like to put 99.9% on performance, right? But that doesn't happen because nobody knows your brand. You need to make people aware of your brand and then go on from there. If you just put the money on performance, typically that's what unfortunately end up happening. It's like you will be able to capture the low hanging fruits, and once you stop the money on performance channels, we all know Google Meta, then nothing is coming in, because you were essentially either led by a promotional offer or it was the low-hanging fruits that you were able to capture. So in the beginning, if it's essentially a new brand, my recommendation, depending on the years of experience I've got, is to go for definitely 70% money on the brand building so that people are aware of brand. I'll give you another example. We do a lot of app store optimization for the large D2C companies, right? If people are not searching for your brand, even when they're in the app store because they're not aware of your name, then whatever money you're spending on the advertising might still be waste. It might happen that they want to buy your product that you're selling, but they might end up going with a competitor because the competitor's brand is better known than yours. And some of the successful examples in India, I mean, you talk about Mamaearth, you talk about Sugar Cosmetics, especially in the beauty industry, they have done it very effectively, right? They've built the brand. I'll give you another example of headphones, right? Boat, apart from ignoring what's happening recently, but they really built a brand. It is an incredible story when you talk about building a brand. So, especially for a new brand, word of caution to all the new budding entrepreneurs: make your brand so that people are aware of your brand, and be cautious about evaluating everything on performance in the beginning. Yeah.
I think those are key points to hold for everyone, all our attendees, especially those who are working on nascent brands. And I think I just want to stick to the point about awareness that you made. As a strategist working with MNC Saatchi, I've been grappled with the one term which has been on everybody's mind, which is mental availability. I have a little stat here which basically says that India's digital ad spend in 2025 hit about 6.2 billion US dollars. And most of it was focused around brand building. I think I grapple with the idea that where and when does mental availability kind of come in? We've tried and tested, and we were told that mental availability should be something that only established brands have. You mentioned that new brands should have a framework of sorts where mental availability comes in, where people should have awareness of what you're offering or what product you're offering. And I think the Ehrenberg Bass model really talks about having mental market share. And I think going back to, Gulrez, your point initially about building trust and the fact that people, if they haven't heard about a brand 4 to 5 times, they most likely will not be buying into the product. I think I want to touch a bit about that, about the fact that what is the right balance between mental penetration, network size, and kind of achieving that mental market share. Have you had clients kind of come in with a resistance approach to mental availability, or do you feel that there has been a nurturing path in terms of guiding them towards a brand first approach, especially bringing in frameworks like this, which really talks about, you mentioned boat. I know that they did a takeover, I think 2 months ago, when Karan Aujla had his performance in Chandigarh, and it stayed with me. They were able to kind of capture the moment. They were able to kind of put out the right ad at the right time. I'm stuck in a traffic jam. I have my earphones on. My earphones are not working. So I think I want to put this question to both of you, because I think mental availability is something that we're hearing so much about, and every marketer is grappling with where and how to introduce it, and whether they should introduce it in the first place. Maybe we can start with you, Partha. Maybe you can take us, give us an anecdote from one of our clients as well.
Yeah, I'll take a cue from what Gulrez also mentioned, right? That if we don't build mental availability, people will not consider you before the purchase intent kicks in, right? And if we don't build that, you are kind of stuck on that constant discounting loop. You're giving 50% off, somebody will give 51, then you'll give 55, and loop never ends. And as a business, the business has to make money. So the point with which you focused on the lower funnel was to get immediate revenue. Now that revenue is getting wiped off because of rising CACs, and second, you are on a discounting loop. So it's not working in favor of you. That is again bringing me back to creating that mental availability, so that you don't have to give those nudges of an extra discount when the purchase intent kind of kicks in. Right? That's why mental availability, I think, becomes supreme for us. And that's a discussion point we have. We talk about it. Does it apply on a day-to-day business when you're working with brands that are also chasing revenue goals? Today, the revenue goals are not that easy anymore. There's competition is humongous. So, but still, it's, as I said, it's a long-term play. And I think investing in it rightly has also brought in long-term benefits. I'll quickly touch upon an example, and that's very close to my heart. This is for a design app that we manage. The entirety of 2023, we did only performance campaigns. Only performance campaigns, right? And the majority of the user base that we got wanted to use the product for free. So we burnt all that money. We got only users who were using the free version of that app. Push back to 2025, we did zero spends on performance and just focused on brand building and mental availability. And we did, of course, a very deep study on who are my audience cohorts, where are their digital time spends, what are their digital touch points, what kind of content are they watching, and basis that the plan and the entire allocation from what we were talking about 80, 60, 60, 40 and was entirely 100 and 0 towards branding. And what we realized was the audience that was coming now was a much higher value audience, and they were buying the premium subscription on the product, because on a longer form awareness kind of a campaign, you're able to talk about the brand, you're able to talk why should one choose the brand, and you're not just focused on lower CPMs, ad units, which are focused on driving just a certain sort of action. So I think mental availability for me personally also, I think it's a topic less spoken, but it should ideally, as Gulrez also mentioned, it's the duty for us and for the brands to kind of discuss this more in detail. Gulrez, I'm sorry I've taken your point, and it was such a nice point.
No worries. No worries. I'm glad that you agree with it.
Yeah. So if you have any pointers to kind of add to this from your experience.
You've covered it pretty well, but if I had to relate to the Indian audience, I'll just say mental availability leads to trust.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And if people trust your brand, if people trust the brand promise, then you're playing in a different league. I mean, sometimes, a lot of times, we have clients in the Me Too category where the product differentiation is not so much, right? But and I'll give an example of, let's say, insurance. when you're doing a travel insurance, or when you're doing a car insurance, without going too much into detail, these are standard products, right? But why would a customer have a trust or an mental availability of a particular brand compared to the other? That creates the difference between the market share of the two brands.
No, I mean, these are all amazing pointers, and I think we're all grappling with the mental availability challenge put across to us. And I think to kind of stick with the point about this being a marketing proposition that's longitudinal, I would like to ask my next question for all the established brands who are joining us, who probably listen to us. A quick snapshot of what you think as an established brand where the challenge is very, very different. People already know who you are, you already have some kind of demand, some awareness, but your growth can still plateau. In your opinion, what should established brands should be doing distinctly differently in this day and age? And how should they grapple with the brand versus performance balance? I would like to ask the question to both of you because I know that we've had a mix of nascent stage brands and established brands, and at least for me, I've had, I think, 4 out of 5 of my clients across the US, across India, across APAC, really bringing in different frameworks of what future forward growth looks like. So maybe you can give us like a quick snapshot of what you think established brands should kind of hold close to their heart when they're delving into the brand versus performance kind of balance.
I'll take a first stab at it, and Gulrez, you can just help me through it, because this is a very tricky answer to even think of. So when we're talking about established brands, if you're talking about legacy brands who've been in the market for long, or we are talking about brands that have already reached some sort of a critical mass. These are two definitions of established brands, right? Most often than not, it's not that the lack of demand is affecting it, but we are not able to find where the new sources of demands are coming from. And that again has a lot to say about the product, and as you said, 4Ps is a part of the marketing function. So is the product market fit correct? That becomes important. Have you lost touch with the new age consumers? That becomes very important. So I think a product market fit is something that we should definitely start with. And to understand if the product market fit is there, again, we touched upon mental availability a lot, right? So once you know where the product fits, what different audiences does it fit for, then deploy a mental availability framework with some category entry points. Now you will have few reasons for which the product fits well for a certain set of audiences, but it might not be the same level of importance for the other part of it. That becomes important. The other part what we've also realized is that, as Gulrez correctly said, that we're trying to squeeze out from the top 5-10% of the audience so much that are we reaching to a diversified audience becomes important. Are we nurturing newer buyers? Because we've spent so much time on just doing performance, and then 5 years later we realized, oh, we've not spoken to a new set of buyers that are now in the market for, and that's when the entire grappling of what should we do starts. Moving away from metros, tier 2, tier 3 have incredible growth stories. We have enough brands that kind of substitute for the fact that the next growth of India is going to be beyond the metro cities. So are we pushing into new geographies? These are a few things a brand should talk about, because while this question is so large, the answer is not that easy, because that involves how is your product, how is your pricing to the market, are we talking about a legacy brand or a fairly new brand which has held some sort of a critical mass? Does the audience even exist for that product beyond what you're already kind of servicing? So there's a multitude of questions that we need to kind of think about. But if you're only talking from a media and a marketing point of view, I cannot stress enough on testing frameworks. And it has been a key focus for us is, are we doing enough tests on different kinds of audiences to also understand if we've missed out on anything? So I think mental availability, understanding of product market fit, new audiences, nurturing new buyers, moving into new geographies. I think these would be some that I would say any established brand should do.
Gulrez, any thoughts or
Partha, can I
addendum?
add?
Yes, please.
Yes. Can I add two more, Partha, with your permission on this?
Yes, please.
Um,
I was waiting to hear from you as well because I thought you would, because considering what Apple does and with so many kind of consumers across the globe, I think you will have a much bigger answer to this as well.
No, I would think if given a perfect answer for it, but I'm just going to add, apart from the 4 or 5 that you mentioned, I'm going to just add 2 more on it with some examples. One is build the future generation demand. What I mean by it is, if you look at Amazon, if you look at Netflix, if you look at Hotstar, if you look at Flipkart, I think in the shoppable commerce space, or people who are shopping online, they've got a fair between the two of them in commerce. They've got a pretty decent share, right? What they need to do is ensure that the new generation, which is becoming, shopping oriented, they are there for them. Likewise, why would Hotstar or Netflix advertise so much on a daily basis? Is to build the future generation of demand, or if I can call it another way, is to stay relevant, right?
Hmm.
We've all heard the examples. We've all lived through Nokia. We've all lived through Kodak. They did not stay relevant. That's one fair, I would say, to the established brand, is that you need to stay relevant for the future generation of the demand that is coming our way. We've seen some of the really big companies fall through when they don't do these two things. So that's the only addition I can add to part of what you already covered.
No, thank you for that. I think we have some excellent points and a lot for our participants to kind of muscle over, because I think you made some incredible points, especially about, I think, to Partha's point about finding the right audience at the right time. I just want to take us to the point about finding the right demand at the right time rather than before it's too late. I think, to the point about the fact that India hasn't had to grapple with the privacy regulations, at some point we will have to. And I think that we've been talking about signal loss in a very strong and very up and coming way about the fact that audience signals are now becoming harder and harder to spot since attention is so divided. But at the same time, I think every consumer leaves a trail of breadcrumbs across their media engagement on various different platforms. So, from your perspective, what has really changed in the signaling landscape, and where should brands be looking to now?
I'll take a gig on it, and Partha, you need
Yeah.
to substantiate
Yeah,
more.
yeah, lovely.
In my response to Dia, it would be look for early smoke, right? And I'll give you an example. This is an age-old example. Let's say if you're planning to go for a holiday from Bangalore to Goa, or Delhi to Goa, or Mumbai to Goa, and if all the brands who are targeting you are bidding on the keyword, which is Mumbai to Goa flight tickets, if at that point of time you start advertising, you've already lost the battle, right? Because typically there's a data point that for a domestic vacation, people start planning 3 weeks in advance. For international, holiday, people start planning 9 to 10 weeks in advance. So that is the time where you need to look for those signals. If you are waiting for the most accurate keyword query to be typed into Google, I think it's the bus has already moved on. So my simple recommendation from signal perspective is to look for early smoke, is to understand how that associated industries can also take the benefit from it, because it's not only, if I continue with the same example of holiday, then luggage, then ticketing, then your let's say taxi booking, your hotel booking, everything around that becomes signals that can be captured for the for that particular audience. Another example can be somebody who's planning for a wedding in India. That typically happens, let's say, 3 to 6 months in advance, right? So there is a lot of signals that you get from the queries, from the user behavior, from the content consumption. We need to take into consideration, and we should build our product in such a way that that is able to capture this intent. And for both of our brands, especially MNC Saatchi and Apple, we should start charging these intent signals to our brands that we offer for sure. But over to you, Partha.
Yeah, I mean, as you kind of covered everything. Beyond signals, as you said, right, from that, touching upon your travel, this thing, we should have less reliance on in-market audience. As Gulrez correctly said, if you're waiting for them to search, then the battle is already lost because everybody's going to pounce on it. But knowing that this time of the year, flights to Goa will surge. In the winters, it's going to go up. That comes from a deep understanding of the consumer. So I think finding demand before it's obvious, it's not a media job. It's understanding the audience job, right? Because only when you understand the audience can you deploy that media. So I think there is a lot of bad rep on focus group interviews now, but I still think that gives us a good insight of what the audience might do. What you will not get a clear signal of, are they willing to buy it or not? For there are different studies that you can also do. But I think finding anything before it's obvious, it has to start with the audience, because if you don't ask them, you will not know. If you don't observe their behavior, you will not know. So rather than looking for an in-market audience and checking the search terms on flights from Bombay to Goa, now when people are traveling, it's very easy to understand on Google Trends that flights to Goa has surged up 3 months before, because people have started planning that vacation earlier. So I think it should start from an audience first approach and not from a media first approach. And talking about signals, because you did touch upon what signals to look into, I think some of the things that you've mentioned are already correct. But I would just add upon things like, do you get any sort of trend analysis earlier on spiking, right? Those would be the only differences that I would say. And if you understand the audience, where are they from? There are multiple things that you can do from a tool perspective today to understand that. But again, the point that I'm trying to make at the base fundamental of it is that it should start from an audience first, and knowing the audience and what their behavior and approach is. Only then we can preempt demand in the earlier stages. Sorry.
Thank you. No, I think you made some excellent points. And I think for someone who works on the strategy side of things, I think there's a lot of juicy points that I need to go back and rework. I think there's a lot to think about when it comes to understanding our audiences and market better. I think that's where there's a criticality in understanding who you're speaking to. I know we're short on time and we have a lot of questions, so we're going to dive into the Q&A section. I think to kickstart, we have Deepak, who's asked, will agentic ad protocols like ADCP or MCP lead to disintermediation and make third-party SSPs or DSPs less relevant in brand and performance marketing? Do either of you want to maybe take a stab at responding to this question?
Sorry, we are talking about agentic AI?
We're talking about AdCP and agentic ad protocols and how relevant they are in brand and performance marketing.
Fair. Okay. See, we also touched upon SSPs and DSPs. I don't think that what we are seeing as an early trends, right? That these are more enablers rather than disruptors. I think as fast as a DSP and an SSP evolves and embraces agentic AI, it is only going to help it make buying more efficient. So that's my 2 cents on it. If I've understood the question correctly, Gulrez, do you have a point of view on that as well?
Again, if I understand the question correctly, Partha, it is going to take time. It's going to happen in the developed market first, obviously, given the fact we are largely the adopting markets. It will happen. Only one thing from my side that we need to be careful about is the AI audience in itself. I mean, there are various data points across the internet that today 50% of ads are not shown to human. So, and I'm only extrapolating when the AI takes over from a SSP and a DSP perspective, especially on the agentic piece, then are we really showing the ads to the humans? Although it might be more optimized, it might get more efficient, but is the viewability going to be a worthy enough metrics at that point in time?
Thank you. I think you've made some excellent points. We've had a great conversation. I think any final parting thoughts for, I think, your new age advertising executives who are kind of entering the field that you'd like to maybe impart to them? Any kind of key takeaways?
I'm a big believer that fundamentals don't change. While it's exciting, it is definitely exciting with the number of platforms. What you can do on advertising, be it from creator economy, be it in media planning, be it even from creative point of view. I would suggest that the fundamentals never change. So more deeper focus on that fundamentals is going to be still important. What Les Binet had written, Peter Field has written 30 years, 40 years ago, still relevant today. We still talk about brand first performance, and they've been looking at and doing this. They kind of told about this 30, 40 years back, right? So I think a very deep understanding of fundamentals, having an audience first approach, especially for all the budding media planners. Don't look at audiences as just figures on your Excel sheet, right? Understand them. How much can you bifurcate audiences? How much can you find out about them? These are, I think, these fundamentals in place is going to give you a much better. I think also travel. Until unless you don't travel to different parts of the country or wherever you can, you won't understand it. If you're from different states, Delhi, you're from Delhi, I'm from Assam. We've both stayed in Bangalore, and we both know how back in home people behave or people resonate with something, right? So I think travel a little bit more, see the different parts of the country. You'll see that how diverse people generally are. So those would be my 2 cents.
I have one more question that's come in, which I want to take because I know we've not to make this more of an AI session, but I think we are all grappling with new tools. One of our participants has asked, with the advent of AI and LLMs, technology is getting democratized. So what would prevent a major advertiser from building their own DSP and AI agent campaign orchestrator in-house and bypass third-party open internet DSPs?
That's an interesting question. A DSP or an SSP in the lack of a DMP doesn't really work, because it's not just buying the inventory, it also who are you buying and showing the ads to. So I don't doubt that AI is going to be able to build some of those things. We still have to see it. I think that's a good question for me also to do some homework around that. But considering how we are seeing the adoption, or how we are doing some of that adoptions at our end, we're seeing some of our clients do that. I don't doubt that it might be a reality in the future. But in the lack of a DMP or having a audience layer in the middle, how does it work? It's something even I need to do some research definitely on. So whoever asked that question, it's a great question. So really thank you for that.
Gulrez, any thoughts on this?
Sure, many thoughts on this.
Many thoughts.
I think orchestration should be able to happen because of the automation of the processes. But in order to build the SSP or in order to build the DSP, you need a lot of inventory connection. And that is a process that you cannot automate, right? Once it is done, then the optimization can happen. So one part of the question I agree, which is the orchestration should happen. On the other hand, we've seen it all. We've been in the industry for a long time. Clients likes us to do the work. So I'm not sure if clients would replace us and build their own DSPs. Well, if they are large brands, they might, but it's still a very costly affair. And it all comes down to, is that their business model? I mean, we all know Unilever, P&G, Coke, Pepsi, they've been spending billions of dollars all over the world, right? If they had to, they would have done it by now. I mean, technology in various forms and shape have existed, but they've not done it because it's not their business model. It is not their expertise, even though technology is available. So yes, I would summarize it with that point that orchestration is possible, but not the business model.
Thank you for that. I think that leaves us on an optimistic note that we have homework to do, but I think there's a future forward perspective on what we should be looking forward to. And with that, I think we've come to the end of our webinar. For all our participants, we have a little survey for you. We'd love to hear about how we did. What are some of the other webinar topics you'd like to chat with us about? Any feedback that you have or any other questions, we're here to answer, and feel free to reach out to us. We look forward to doing more of these Webinar Plus with Performance Plus at MNC Saatchi Performance and get some amazing speakers like we have today.
Lovely.
Thank you so much, dear Partha. It was a pleasure talking to both of you.
Absolutely, Gulrez, and thank you for all the wisdom that you got. Thank you, Dia, for making it so free flow, I would say.
Yes, and hopefully we can do this in person in the off the digital realm sometime soon again.
That would be great.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.